Hey guys. Okay guys, last time we did chapter 4. And in chapter 4, Kino went to sell the pearl, and as you know, the pearl buyers had conspired to rip Kino off, and he left angrily, and he made another one of his mistakes. His Kino's habit is he doesn't know how to keep his mouth shut. So instead of just saying thanks but no thanks and leaving and saying, I'll think about your offer, he stomped out and says, well, I'll take it to the capital. So his problem is he's done told everybody now where he plans on going. So now they're going to just, it's obvious, they're going to follow him, right? So we're starting on chapter 5. This is page 58. Now, this chapter, I really like the way this chapter begins. The late moon arose before the first rooster crowed. Kino opened his eyes in the darkness, for he sensed movement near him, but he did not move. Only his eyes searched the darkness, and in the pale light of the moon that crept through the sides in the brush house, Kino saw Juana arise silently from beside him. So Kino wakes up because somebody's moving in the brush house, and it wakes him up. Who was it that was moving? What do you suppose she's going to do? You guys are pretty smart. He saw her move toward the fireplace. So carefully did she work that he heard only the lightest sound when she moved the fireplace stone. And then, like a shadow, she glided toward the door. She paused for a moment beside the hanging box where Coyotito lay. Then for a second, she was black in the doorway. And then she was gone. Rage surged in Kino. He rolled up to his feet and followed her as silently as she had gone, and he could hear her quick footsteps going toward the shore. Quietly he tracked her, and his brain was red with anger. She burst clear out of the brush line and stumbled over the little boulders toward the water. And then she heard him coming, and she broke into a run. Her arm was up to throw when he leaped at her, caught her arm, wrenched the pearl from her. He struck her in the face with his clenched fist, and she fell among the boulders, and he kicked her in the side. In the pale light, he could see the little waves break over her, and her skirt floated about and clung to her legs as the water receded. Kino looked down at her, and his teeth were bared. He hissed at her like a snake. And Juana stared at him with wide, unfrightened eyes, like a sheep before the butcher. She knew there was murder in him, and it was all right. She had accepted it. She would not resist or even protest. And then the rage left him, and a sick disgust took its place. He turned away from her, walked up the beach and through the brush line. His senses were dulled by his emotion. So, Juana's, like y'all said, going to throw this pearl back, and Kino catches up with her, she's just about to the shoreline, right? She's like rearing back to throw this pearl, and he, grabs her hand and wrenches the pearl from her and hits her and kicks her. So I want y'all to think of the things that have happened to Kino since he's gotten this pearl. Doctor poisoned the baby. He's gotten beaten up a couple times, and now he's beat his own wife. What should he do with the pearl? He should somehow get rid of this pearl, okay? All right. Now guess what's going to happen to Kino. Here we go. His senses were dulled by his emotion. He heard the rush, got his knife out and lunged at one dark figure and felt his knife go home. And then he was swept to his knees and swept again to the ground. Greedy fingers went through his clothes. Frantic fingers searched him, and the pearl, knocked from his hand, lay winking behind a little stone in the pathway. It glinted in the soft moonlight. What just happened to Kino? Dude just got jumped, and the pearl got knocked out of his hand. It says it fell behind a stone, and it's kind of glinting in the moonlight. Now, old Juana's still down at the beach. She's got to get up. Here we go. Juana dragged herself up from the rocks on the edge of the water. Her face was a dull pain. Her side ached. She steadied herself on her knees for a while, and her wet skirt clung to her. There was no anger in her for Kino. He had said, I am a man, and that meant certain things to Juana. It meant that he was half insane and half God. It meant that Kino would drive his strength against a mountain and plunge his strength against the sea. Juana, in her woman's soul, knew that the mountain would stand while the man broke himself, and that the sea would surge while the man drowned in it. And yet it was this thing that made him a man, half insane, half God. And Juana had need of a man. She could not live without a man. Although she might be puzzled by these differences between man and woman, she knew them and accepted them and needed them. Of course she would follow him. There was no question of that. Sometimes the quality of woman, the reason, the caution, the sense of preservation could cut through Kino's madness and save them all. She climbed painfully to her feet, and she dipped her cupped palms in the little waves, washed her bruised face with the stinging salt water. Then she went creeping up the beach after Kino. Now, this next paragraph is nothing but symbolism, so y'all pay attention. We're going to stop and discuss it a few times. A flight of herring clouds had moved over the sky from the south. The pale moon dipped in and out of strands of clouds so that Juana walked in darkness for a moment and in light the next. So I want y'all to understand, Juana's picked herself up from the beach and she's walking up the path towards the brush house. She does not know yet that Kino just got his butt kicked, okay? So as she's walking up the path, there's a full moon, but there are clouds out. And the clouds are blowing over. And it says, so in one moment, the moon won't be covered, so she'll be in the light. And then 10 seconds later, there are clouds over the moon, and she's in the dark again. So she's going light, dark, light, dark. Okay, y'all understand that physically what's happening? Now, somebody explain that symbolically. So let's read that part again. It says, the pale moon dipped in and out of the strands of clouds, so that Juana walked in darkness for a moment and in light the next. Symbolically, what is that? What is that saying about Juana? Give it a try. You're very close. You're very close. He
like
said,
evil back and forth.
That's right. It's evil back and forth. So it's like this. Kino was under the hypnotism of this pearl, right? Which has brought a bunch of evil on them. So she wants to be faithful to her husband, okay, and do what he desires by keeping the pearl, selling it. But the pearl is brought back, so that's the evil. Now, when she's thinking to herself about throwing it away, that's the good idea. It's like the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other. Have y'all ever heard of that? Mm-hmm. Like the little angel says, don't steal the M&Ms, and the devil says, come on, it's just one bag of M&Ms. Okay? It's kind of like that with the pearl, except a lot bigger than a bag of M&Ms. Let's keep going. Her back was bent with pain. Her head was low. She went through the line of brush when the moon was covered. And when it looked through, she saw the glimmer of the great pearl in the path behind the rock. This is so good right here. She sank to her knees and picked it up. And the moon went into the darkness of the clouds again. So look, as soon as Juana goes down and picks this pearl up, clouds cover the moon. She's in darkness again. What does that say about the pearl? It's obviously evil. It's a force of darkness. Let's keep going. Juana remained on her knees while she considered whether to go back to the sea and finish her job. And as she considered, the light came again, and she saw two dark figures lying in the path ahead of her. Two dark figures, two evil people. Get this who it is. She leaped forward and saw that one was Kino, the other a stranger with dark, shiny fluid leaking from his throat. Kino moved sluggishly. Arms and legs stirred like those of a crushed bug, and a thick muttering came from his mouth. Now, in an instant, Juana knew that the old life was gone forever. A dead man in the path, and Kino's knife, dark-bladed beside him, convinced her. All of the time, Juana had been trying to rescue something of the old peace of the time before the pearl, but now it was gone, and there was no retrieving it. And knowing this, she abandoned the past instantly. There was nothing to do but to save themselves. Her pain was gone now, her slowness. Quickly, she dragged the dead man from the pathway into the shelter of the brush. She went to Kino, sponged his face with her wet skirt. His senses were coming back, and he moaned. "I have taken the pearl. I have lost it. Now it is over," he said. "The pearl is gone." Juana quieted him as she would quiet a sick child. "Hush," she said. "Here is your pearl. I found it in the path. Can you hear me now? Here is your pearl. Can you understand? You have killed a man. We must go away. They will come for us. Can you understand? We must be gone before the daylight comes." "I was attacked," Kino said uneasily. "I struck to save my life." "Do you remember yesterday?" Juana asked. "Do you think that will matter? Do you remember the men of the city? Do you think your explanation will help?" Kino drew a great breath and fought off his weakness. "No," he said. "You were right." And his will hardened, and he was a man again. "Go to our house and bring Coyotito," he said. "Bring all the corn we have. I will drag the canoe in the water, and we will go." So Kino's done figured out things ain't going good for us. So he says, "This is it. You go get the baby, get a bag of corn, okay? Meet me at the beach. While you're doing that, I'm going to ready the canoe. I'm going to push it down in the water, get the paddles ready, and we are out of here." But there's about to be a problem. What? Huh? Not a storm, but a good guess.
He took his life, he took his knife and left her. He stumbled toward the beach and came to his canoe. And when the light broke through again, he saw that a great hole had been knocked in the bottom. And a searing rage came on him and gave him strength. Somebody punched a hole in the canoe. Who do you think did that? Him.
Probably the people who.
Somebody that wants it. We don't know if it was the doctor's people, the neighbors, the pearl buyers. We don't know. Somebody. Does Keno have any friends? No. And a searing rage came to him and gave him strength. Now the darkness was closing in on his family. Now the evil music filled the night, hung over the mangroves, skirled in the wave beat. The canoe of his grandfather, plastered over and over, had a splintered hole broken in it. This was an evil beyond thinking. The killing of a man was not so evil as the killing of a boat. For a boat does not have sons, and a boat cannot protect itself, and a wounded boat does not heal. There was sorrow in Keno's rage. This last thing had tightened him beyond breaking. He was an animal now, for hiding, for attacking. He lived only to preserve himself and his family. He was not conscious of the pain in his head. He leaped up the beach, through the brush line, toward the brush house, and it did not occur to him to take one of the canoes of his neighbors. Never once did that thought enter his mind, any more than he could have conceived breaking a boat. The roosters were crowing. The dawn was not far off. Smoke of the first fires seeped out through the walls of the brush houses, and the first smell of cooking corn cakes was in the air. Already the dawn birds were scampering in the bushes. The weak moon was losing its light, and the clouds thickened and curdled to the southward. The wind blew freshly into the estuary, a nervous, restless wind with the smell of storm on its breath, and there was change and uneasiness in the air. Keno, hurrying toward his house, felt a surge of exhilaration. Now he was not confused, for there was only one thing to do, and Keno's hand went first to the great pearl in his shirt, and then to his knife hanging under his shirt. He saw a little glow ahead of him, and then, without interval, a tall flame leaped up in the dark with a crackling roar, and a tall edifice of fire lighted the pathway. What do you suppose is on fire?
No. What? The house?
I think you might be right. Keno broke into a run. It was his brush house. He knew that these houses could burn down in a very few moments. And as he ran, a scuttling figure ran toward him. Juana, with Coyotito in her arms, and Keno's shoulder blanket clutched in her hand. The baby moaned with fright, and Juana's eyes were wide and terrified. Keno could see the house was gone, and he did not question Juana. He knew, but she said, "It was torn up, and the floor dug. Even the baby's box turned out, and as I looked, they put fire to the outside." The fierce light of the burning house lighted Keno's face strongly. "Who?" he demanded. "I don't know," she said. "The dark ones." The neighbors were tumbling from their houses now, and they watched the falling sparks and stamped them out to save their own houses. Suddenly Keno was afraid. The light made him afraid. He remembered the man lying dead in the brush beside the path, and took Juana by the arm and drew her into the shadow of a house away from the light, for the light was danger to him. Question. Can't say your name, but why was the light danger to Keno?
Because it wasn't evil like him.
No. Yes.
He was scared that they were gonna find the body.
Yeah, he didn't want to be found. Yeah, he's running for his own life, man, and he's got people burning down his house, putting holes in his canoe. He realizes, you know what, this ain't funny anymore. I gotta hide. And now the sun's about to come out. Kind of difficult to hide in the daylight, isn't it? Let's keep flipping, people. For a moment he considered, and then he worked among the shadows until he came to the house of Juan Tomas, his brother. He slipped into the doorway and drew Juana after him. Outside he could hear the squeal of children and the shouts of the neighbors, for his friends thought he might be inside the burning house. The house of Juan Tomas was almost exactly like Keno's house. Nearly all the brush houses were alike, and all leaked light and air, so that Juana and Keno, sitting in the corner of the brush house, could see the leaping flames through the wall. They saw the flames, tall and furious. They saw the roof fall, and watched the fire die down as quickly as a twig fire dies. They heard the cries of warning of their friends, and the shrill, keening cry of Apollonia, wife of Juan Tomas. She, being the nearest relative, raised a formal lament for the dead of the family. So what does Apollonia think happened to Keno and his family? She thinks they died in the house fire. But pay attention to what's about to happen. Apollonia realized that she was wearing her second best head shawl, and she rushed to her house to get her fine new one. As she rummaged in a box by the wall, Keno's voice said quietly, "Apollonia, do not cry out. We are not hurt." "How do you come here?" she demanded. "Do not question," he said. "Go now to Juan Tomas.
Bring him here and tell no one else. This is important to us, Apollonia. She paused, her hands helpless in front of her. And then, yes, my brother-in-law, she said. Okay, this question is going to be for you because you're an intuitive person. Okay, so I'm going to read this again. I want you to answer the question that's going to come after it. Here we go. Apollonia goes back to the house, and then Kino, he's hiding in there. She doesn't know that they're there. She thinks they're dead. So here's Kino. Apollonia, do not cry out. We are not hurt. How did you come here? She demanded. Do not question, he said. Go now to Juan Tomas. Bring him here. Tell no one else. This is important to us, Apollonia. She paused, her hands helpless in front of her. And then, yes, my brother-in-law, she said. So it says she paused. After he said, go get Juan Tomas, bring him back here. We need y'all's help. It says, she paused. Why did she pause?
I probably was thinking what's going on? Like, why are you here?
No, it's not right. Good try. What? She was hesitant to help them. She's thinking, listen, Mr. Kino, things really ain't going well for you since you found this pearl. And now, you're in my house with this pearl. I guess I'll help you, but to be honest, man, I don't want you around. That's why it says but she's like, okay, let's keep going. In a few moments, Juan Tomas came back with her. He lighted a candle and came to them where they crouched in a corner and said, Apollonia, see to the door and do not let anyone enter. He was older, Juan Tomas, and he assumed the authority. Now, my brother, he said. I was attacked in the dark, said Kino, and in the fight I have killed a man. Who? Asked Juan Tomas quickly. I do not know. It is all darkness in shape of darkness. It is the pearl, said Juan Tomas. There's a devil in this pearl. You should have sold it and passed on the devil. Perhaps you could still sell it, buy peace for yourself. Kino said, Oh, my brother, an insult has been put on me that is deeper than my life. For on the beach my canoe is broken, my house is burned, and in the brush a dead man lies. Every escape is cut off. You must hide us, my brother. And Kino, looking closely, saw deep worry come into his brother's eyes. Does Juan Tomas want to help him? No. You know it's bad when you don't even want to help your own brother. He forestalled him in a possible refusal. Not for long, he said quickly. Only until a day has passed and a new night has come. Then we will go. I will hide you, said Juan Tomas. I do not want to bring danger to you, Kino said. I know I am like a leprosy. I will go tonight and then you will be safe. I will protect you, said Juan Tomas. And he called, Apollonia, close up the door. Do not even whisper that Kino is here. They sat silently all day in the darkness of the house, and they could hear the neighbors speaking of them. Through the walls of the house, they could watch their neighbors raking through the ashes to find the bones. Let's stop there. Are the neighbors really raking through the ashes to find their bones? No. What are they looking for? The pearl. They're looking for the pearl. Here's some greedy suckers. Crouching in the house of Juan Tomas, they heard the shock go into the neighbors' minds at the news of the broken boat. Juan Tomas went out among the neighbors to divert their suspicions, and he gave them theories and ideas of what had happened to Kino and to Juana and to the baby. To one he said, I think they have all gone south along the coast to escape the evil that was on them. And to another, Kino would never leave the sea. Perhaps he found another boat. So Juan Tomas is going out and talking to all the neighbors. He tells one group of neighbors, I think he went to this place. And another group of neighbors thinking, I'm not sure. I think he may have gone here. Why is Juan Tomas going out telling different stories of where Kino may be? To make people forget about him?
No, so everybody has a different story. So when they come together and they won't be able to agree because they all got different stories.
He's trying to cause confusion. Let's keep going. And in that day the wind rose up to beat the gulf and tore the kelps and weeds that lined the shore. And the wind cried through the brush houses and no boat was safe on the water. Then Juan Tomas told the neighbors, Kino was gone. If he went to the sea, he is drowned by now. And after each trip among the neighbors, Juan Tomas came back with something borrowed. He brought a little woven straw bag of red beans and a gourd full of rice. He borrowed a cup of dried peppers and a block of salt. He brought in a long working knife, 18 inches long and heavy, as a small axe, a tool, and a weapon. And when Kino saw the knife, his eyes lighted up. He fondled the blade and his thumb tested the edge. The wind screamed over the gulf and turned the water white, and the mangroves plunged like frightened cattle, and a fine sandy dust arose from the land and hung in a stifling cloud over the sea. The wind drove off the clouds
and skimmed the sky clean and drifted the sand of the country like snow. Then Juan Tomas, when the evening approached, talked long with his brother. Where will you go? To the north, said Kino. I have heard that there are cities in the north. Avoid the shore, said Juan Tomas. They are making a party to search the shore. The men in the city will look for you. Do you still have the pearl? I have it, said Kino, and I will keep it. I might have given it as a gift, but now it is my misfortune in my life, and I will keep it. His eyes were hard and cruel and bitter. That part where Kino says, I might have given it as a gift. Does anybody believe that? He could have given this thing away 100 times, and he never did. Cleotito whimpered, and Juana muttered little magics over him to make him silent. The wind is good, said Juan Tomas. There will be no tracks. They left quietly in the dark before the moon had risen. The family stood formally in the house of Juan Tomas. Juana carried Cleotito on her back, covered and held in by her head shawl, and the baby slept, cheek turned sideways against her shoulder. The head shawl covered the baby, and one end of it came across Juana's nose to protect her from the evil night air. Juan Tomas embraced his brother with a double embrace and kissed him on both cheeks. Go with God, he said, and it was like a death. You will not give up the pearl? The pearl has become my soul, said Kino. If I give it up, I shall lose my soul. Go thou also with God. And that's where we're stopping for today.